Manufacturing Matters is an MFG Radio Network production brought to you by GIE Media's Manufacturing Group as industry experts take deep dives into the latest manufacturing matters, whether it's new innovations, products, technologies, and emerging markets that help you understand better why manufacturing matters to you and also to the top companies in the medical, aerospace, defense, and electric vehicle manufacturing industries.
Hello and welcome to our latest discussion, Improving Tool Holding and Work Holding Performance. I'm Jake Kaufman, a managing editor for GIE Media's Manufacturing Group. Our good friend Larry Robbins from SMW Autoblok is standing by and waiting to discuss the latest available technology to take your manufacturing operations to the next level of excellence. However, first, we would like to thank SMW Autoblok for sponsoring today's discussion. SMW Autoblok is a work holding company focused on achieving customers' goals and expectations with the highest quality products and services. SMW Autoblok combines stocked standard product with highly trained sales, service, and engineering teams to consistently provide the ideal work holding solutions to customers across a wide variety of industries. The organization strives to achieve a deeper understanding of customer needs to provide products and services geared towards specific customer applications, maintaining long-term mutually beneficial partnerships to enhance machine tools and drive modern manufacturing. And now for a little bit more about today's expert, Larry Robbins, the president of the commercial division at SMW Autoblok. Larry joined SMW Autoblok in 2007 as a national sales manager before being appointed president in 2019. As president for SMW Autoblok's commercial division, Larry is responsible for all strategic sales and marketing initiatives, as well as overseeing SMW Autoblok's North America sales team and customer base, including machine, tool, dealers, and OEMs. He currently oversees various products or projects internationally. Larry has more than 35 years of experience in machine tool manufacturing. And prior to working for SMW Autoblok, he owned a successful manufacturer's rep company for 13 years. Larry's expertise in the machine industry began in his early youth when he worked side by side his father, who owned a prosperous distributorship in New York. So Larry, once again, thank you for joining us today. Always a pleasure when you can make some time for us. So without any further ado, though, Larry, I would like to get to the discussion, if that is all right with you.
Excellent, Jake. Jake, thanks for always, as always, for putting this on for, and on behalf of the industry and everything else. The transfer of information, people seem to have such a large problem with telling people kind of what they know because they're afraid they're going to use it against them. I feel like if we don't give back to this industry, nobody else is going to. So I appreciate the opportunity, man. Thank you.
No problem. So obviously we're still very fresh in the new year of 2024, but since it is the new year, is there any new advancements that are coming into the work holding world or that you're planning to debut this year?
Jake, we constantly have product in either redevelopment, updating, creating new products. A big part of our initiative in 2024 is electronics and automation. People think of work holding kind of like they think of a saw in the shop. When it works, they don't even know it's there until it stops working. They go, "What the hell happened to the shop?" And people, that's the other thing. SMW Autoblok was specifically a truck company for many, many years. Through acquisition and just growing, we are now everything in work holding, and it was up until about a month ago shy of vacuum chucks. Well, now we have a division that makes vacuum chucks. So we kind of can hold anything from small round parts to large diameter parts. But with new progress in work holding, the machine tool industry has to keep up with some of that technology too, because there is required interfaces, but automation and electronics are where it's going to be at. I mean, we're creating a full line of chucks that are actuated electrically. So through the non-contact transference of power and data simultaneously, we've created a patented system that works across a broad spectrum of work holding, from chucks to mandrels to collet chucks, to swing clamps, to just about anything, to the point where you can even monitor a manual fixture so you know the right fixture is being used for the right job. It's kind of, it's almost like Big Brother, but without the somebody listening in.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's say you do have a brand new customer that wants to choose a work holding system, and you go in and they just, have essentially an empty factory. It's a blank slate for you to work with. How do you make sure that they choose the right system for their operation?
we always look for the highest rigidity. And Jake, I know I say this every time, so this is the first time I said it today. Flexibility. It has to be flexible, because if a customer buys a product today, they might do that job for 10 years. They might do it for 10 weeks. It has to be reconfigurable to be reutilized again. So many specialty work holding products are specific to a product. We make the largest standard product offering of any work holding company in the world, which means we supply a lot of standard base product and engineered specialty top tooling and locators and adapters for mounting and hardware. So for us, where some of our competition creates something from the ground up, somebody crashes it, it could be 4 months before they get a new one. Mm-hmm. With ours, we pull a product off the shelf. If we built your tooling, we can duplicate that in about 6 weeks max and continue forward. What we try to tell people, and for who's ever listening on this call, it's of the utmost importance. If you have specific requirements for uptime and production goals, it's so frustrating when you get a call from a customer on a Saturday morning and they're like, "We're down. We just crashed our tooling. We don't have any spares." Please implore upon your customers, your bosses, your engineering managers, always when you're doing something special, make sure you have at least one backup, because there's nothing more frustrating than shutting down a production line because they weren't proactive, and then it's our fault. So we move forward, and we have a very talented staff who always tries to achieve our customers.
Okay. So then on the other side, Larry, if you do have a current customer that does have a work holding system that is up and running, how do you consistently make sure that it's running efficiently, as far as, in the factory, nothing that, you personally can do, but make sure that the customer is running it efficiently?
We stock a large dollar amount of spare parts for every product we make. For the sizes we sell, the more product that we sell, that's where we stock more spare parts. We try to have standard jaw sets for every truck we make, standard actuators, and even blank drawbars and draw tubes. So if a customer does go down or needs to change from one machine to another and doesn't want to change work holding, we have the ability to react quickly and build them mounting at an expedited time.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good, Larry. So then also, if you do have a current work holding system that is up and running, but let's say things are going well, so you want to scale and, add to it, how hard is it to add to a current work holding system, and kind of what needs to be considered before you do make any additions?
A lot of companies have to sell you a different product for every application. The beauty is we have a product called the CCS, and it's a chuck switching system, and it gives you the ability now, if you're making a part today and you need to go to a different type chuck, or let's say a mandrel or collet chuck, even a mounted fixture on a turning machine, we have the ability to change on and off the front end of a work holding component without ever changing the back end, so we get complete flexibility. We allow the customer to expand upon their existing work holding. And if they want to reutilize the same work holding, just make it more flexible, we have a lot of different jaws, locator systems, kits to make the chuck either a quick jaw change if it's not, or a quick jaw change chuck with either sealed jaws or standard jaws. There's so many different combinations of jaw and chuck combinations and locators and things like that. But we have all of that standard in a book, so it allows people to just pick it off the shelf. We ship it. They're up and running as quickly as they can to have their manufacturers continue to go with existing work holding.
Awesome. Thanks, Larry. So also too, obviously with work holding, it's something that, your small job shops can use, but also large scale operations are going to have them in use as well. So how does correct work holding impact production, whether you are a small job shop or if you are a large scale production?
People, the first thing they want to blame is either the machine, the tool holder, or the work holding. Customers need to look at their setups and make sure they're rigid, they're flexible. Sorry, Jake, I know number 2 already. And they have to have the utmost rigidity, because you can have the best tool holders in the world. If you have trash for work holding, that tool holder is going to perform less than at a stellar rate. If you have the combination of the right tool holder with the right work holding, with the right machine tool, and there's the other problem. People try to apply such a wide spectrum of parts across a machine. There's nothing more aggravating than having a customer come to you, 3 or 4 weeks after they buy a system and go, oh my God, we forgot this part. And it goes from 15 inches to 40 inches. And I'm like, you can't do that. Well, what do you mean? And I'm like, there's only so much flexibility built into any system. And we've had customers that actually try to accommodate that by building jaws that extend past. I will warn anyone on this call, do not do that. And there's kind of a rule of thumb when you make special jaws, nothing more than 3 times the width of the master jaw in height. And never hang out more than 15 or 20% of the jaw off the back of the chuck. Some jaws naturally do that just to cover dynamic ranges, but just make sure that you have the right rigid setup. Rigidity is what it's all about. Without rigidity and without accuracy and repeatability, you have nothing. And again, I'll say it for the third time, flexibility is the utmost part and the important part of this equation.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So yeah, we're at 3. You might have slipped another one in there too. So we might be at 4 total for flexibility. However, if you do have proper work holding, how does that optimize the tool life? And also then how does that impact your return on investment if you are using tool holding correctly or work holding? Sorry.
It allows you to have the highest speeds and achieve the highest production rates, the highest quality components that come off your production line from the first part to the last part. People will say, you ask a customer, what's your tolerance? And invariably, you always get the guy that goes, oh, 2/10. And you go, well, you're grinding that. No. I was like, how are you measuring that? And so my new favorite thing to do is I have a board behind my desk, and I have 2 lines on it. I go, this is 50 millionths. And the guy goes, how did you measure that? I go, how did you measure yours? And they just go, oh. So I would say that get with your engineering staff. If you make a product of your own, invariably, if an engineer has never manufactured a part, tolerancing parts, thinking that something with 1/10 clearance or 1/10 fit is better than a 1,000th fit. Well, try putting a part that's 1/10 different than another part together when you have to assemble it productive and be productive. So you have to be realistic about what your expectations are too, based on your designs, your equipment, your work holding, your tool holding. It's the only way you're going to get consistency and higher productivity. It's all about how many parts you put out the door and how many dollars you bring in the door to grow to be a bigger company. People forget that for every shop out there's another shop dying to get that work. So if you're not productive and you're not as profitable as you can be, when your competitor does work and they do it at a more effective, efficient rate, it gives them the ability to buy higher tech equipment and now outperform their closest competitor. So be very wary of what you're looking at and the ability to make it. We'll always tell a customer, if we can't do what they want us to do, we'll say, listen, we can't do it, but this person might be able to. And I can't tell you how many times people are shocked when we give them a competitor's name. I would rather lose one sale than lose a customer forever.
Perfect. Thank you, Larry. It's a good strategy to have as well. So how has the growth of aggressive machining, such as high-speed milling, also the increased use of 5-axis machining, and also harder materials, how have all 3 of those affected how work holding is being developed and being used in the factories?
Substantially. That's the simple answer. Realistically, again, it goes back to rigidity. If you don't have the right work holding and tool holding, there's nothing more amazing than going into a shop and the guy saying, oh, I'm doing high-speed milling, and he's doing it in an end mill holder. And I just go, I'll stand over there when you push the button, But it's amazing how many people don't take into account that in order to achieve new processes, you may have to replace tooling, you may have to replace tool holders, you may have to replace the type inserts you use. The new shtick is high-speed milling, where you're going, up to 64 times the speed and up to 32 times the feed rate and up to about 1/3 the depth. But it allows you to do parts much faster, but without the right type of work holding and the right type of bite into a part. You have to be aware that there are certain situations where you can't help but mark a part. We put inserts in, we put grippers in, we do it in chucks, we do it in vices. If your part is that critical and it's metallic, and when I say metallic, iron or steel base, you can use a magnetic work holding, but that can only be applied to a specific certain amount of parts. Vacuum work holding is a whole different animal. So reality is, be realistic about what you choose, because it is going to make the difference between being competitive and not being competitive, and getting a quality product versus a product you fight from first part to last.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So then this is something that you had mentioned at the very beginning when talking about what could be new coming in 2024, but how has automation and also robotics, how is it changing? How is it affecting the work holding technology that you guys are putting out?
It's interesting you asked that, Jake. We've introduced a product called the KNCS-matic. We're the original quick draw change tuck people. People can talk about it all they want. I can show you on blueprints that we were the first people that made a quick draw change job. We also make something now called the KNCS-matic that allows you to robotically change jaws from one job to another. We make automation products now that allow you to go from one chuck to another without human hands or human intervention of any kind. It can all be done in an automated fashion. You have to be aware when you're using automation, though, like automation has a very specific weight limitation, range of motion. The ability to apply it is not specific or special. It's how you set up your automation, your robotics. You know, there's so many things. You know, the new favorite thing for people is cobots. Cobots have a great use across a broad spectrum of products. The problem is they have a weight limitation. You know, when you go to IMTS and everybody's seeing the Corvette flying around the Fanuc booth, you know, it's really funny because, you know, that does demonstrate something that it gives robotic capabilities. The applications for something that size are so minimal and sporadic that it's sensationalism, but it draws attention. For the first time in our history, we will have 3 to 4 robots at our booth at IMTS demonstrating automation products, work holding changeover, machine tending, parts movement. We've created a whole new line of automation that no one else in the world has access to or the ability to manufacture at this point. We've created the first programmably movement, speed, and grip force on a robotic gripper. Most of our competition on a robotic gripper, an electric gripper, you have to strike the part at the same force that you're going to clamp at. On a non-rigid part, you can knock the part out of the fixture. With our system, because we can program, we move rapid, then control speed, control the gripping force, and now move apart. So we can go from lifting metal parts to pick and placing bottles in a pharmaceutical company. It's totally sealed. It's a clean room effective, but there's so many different variables in automation. You know, pneumatics is still the most popular type of automation. You know, there have been a lot of companies that have been leaders in that. You know, right now it happens to be Shunk definitely is the leader in that industry, and that's who everyone is chasing. I mean, and again, people are probably like, why are you talking about a competitor? But, you know, the funny part is, I always say in our industry, there's a pie, and there's enough pieces of the pie for everybody as long as you don't cheat, underprice your product, or give bad quality, because it looks bad for all of us. You know, when people question our quality based on an old experience, I always say to people, you get what you pay for it, because we're the most expensive product on the market, or none. Automation and robotics, you can't do that. That's a very competitive market. But with work holding, I will tell you, we are never the cheapest solution, but we are always the solution that when it's done, will work the most efficiently and effectively for your setup. But you have to have the right base for automation to be functional. You know, there's a lot of different companies that make 0-point systems or palletized systems where you can pull a pallet off, put a pallet on, and be within 5 microns. Everybody's accuracies are basically the same, but their construction is not. You know, some people have ball bearings. Some people use a collet-style collar. Some people use 2 pins. We have a 3-pin system. And the reason we do that is because any other system, you have to do directional milling. You have to put the strongest part of the 0-point in the right direction. So if you're doing one single directional milling or X plus X minus or Y plus Y minus, doesn't matter. But if you're doing multiple movements on another system, you have the ability to pull that part out of the work. It's very rare, and it doesn't happen. So just so you know, I'm not trying to be sensational, but we've built a safety, and we've also built the only system on the market that's field service. Everyone else has a big warning on the back: do not open. We just say, be careful. You know, we don't have anything that's going to fly in your face. We make air blow up as standard. We make air sensing as standard. So we try to add as many features as we can to allow a customer to achieve Industry 4.0. We have the ability to electronically monitor those 0-point units. We have the ability to electrically actuate now. We can cue a pneumatic valve to open, electrical actuated. You only need air to close, air to open, spring to close, depending on the component. But people try to over-engineer things too when it comes to automation and robotics. Let the experts come in and show you how to do it. There are people that are experts in that industry. I do not consider myself one, but we do have someone on our staff that is one. I love to say, Jake, I'm never the smartest guy in the room, but I just want to know who is.
Yeah, perfect, right? And if you're the smartest guy in the room, you got to find a new room. So,
oh, no kidding. Yeah.
Right. So obviously with the talk of robotics and automation, that also does come back to employees. What is kind of like the learning curve of an SMW work holding system? What kind of options are out there as far as like training and education for a employee who is going to start working on an SMW system?
We have a requirement now when we hire a young engineer or a new engineer. Sorry, can't use the term young anymore. If we hire a new engineer or a new salesperson and some key internal people, we will send them to the factory for at least 2 to 4 weeks for training by the people who make the product. SMW Electronics is almost run as a separate entity, so they have a separate building across the street from our manufacturing facility. So they can have specific training just on automation. We are actually choosing to have a totally different sales force. We're actually running autonomously of SMW Autoblok. We're running in conjunction, but there's a gentleman named Jonathan Fariboldes, who's actually the director of that part of our company. And Jonathan has brought us a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of training. He has great relationships throughout the industry between, Universal Robots and FANUC, ABB and KUKA, and there's you can list robots until the cows come home. And everybody is now getting into cobots. I think you'll see at our booth at IMTS probably 3 different brands of cobots. And that's because we want people to see the flexibility is not just in the product. It's in the ability to apply that product across a broad spectrum of components and parts.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So this is also something that you had just touched on, but with the industrial Internet of Things and Industry 4.0 connectivity, how is that kind of impacting work holding, and how are you guys able to use that as you are, overlooking a system that you have installed?
Great question. With our new electronics and our new sensoric products, we have the ability to take standard work holding components and monitor grip force, jaw movement and jaw stroke, jaw position, end position, hydraulic pressure coming in, temperature, torque, you name it. As long as we can build the sensor in your component, we can measure that product. We have a full R&D department now to manufacture components that are a little more off the beaten path for people. So we're trying to offer a standard product that'll cover 85 to 90% of the market. There's always going to be that 10% that wants something totally special. The way we apply this is very specialized, and no one else can do it in the industry right now. We can take real-time information, feedback through inductive couplers wirelessly. I'm powering it wirelessly. So now envision this. Not only can I rotate work holding, it doesn't have to totally be on center. If there's vibration, it's not affected. It doesn't have to be perfectly aligned. You can have one at a 30 or 45 degree angle and the other one flat. You can just monitor movement. It's limitless, but you're feeding back data in real time. So the ability to simultaneously produce energy and data and transmit them in a format that the customer dictates, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. So with the data that you guys are able to collect, is that something that SMW Autoblok is, I guess, putting together, or is that something that the customer has in-house with the system?
Yes, it can be either way, Jake.
Okay.
The customer already has a system that's built. We can tailor our product around their system. For the most part, when we're getting involved, it's on the front end right now. Mm-hmm. Existing systems we can adapt to, no problem at all. We just have to know the basis where you started and where you want to go to. The most important part, the biggest part people miss on robotics and automation, Jake, is you better get a buy-in from the bottom up, because having the president of the company dictate, oh, we're going to robotic. Our directors, we make one of everything for the most part.
Yeah.
They want us to become automated. And I questioned it. Well, I now understand why, because there are ways to automate single parts. Don't limit yourself by thinking, oh, I make one of something I can't automate. You most certainly can. If I make a set of jaws or a set of locators, I can make the first one during the day, measure it, make sure it's accurate, and then run lights out at night. Mm-hmm. I can run 12 hours at night and get free production. in quotes, there's no such thing as free production. But so So automation for us is going to become a big part of what we do moving forward, but get a buy-in from the bottom level up, because there's nothing worse as a shop floor guy to go, well, here you go, good luck. Because companies forget, if you don't train that person, the first thing people think with robotics and automation is, well, there goes my job. Actually, it's the opposite. They're retraining an entire workforce now. You know, guys that were sweeping floors in automotive factories are now programming robots, because the new universal robots are pendant programmable, so you can literally move them around and teach them. So it doesn't take a college education or a rocket science degree. It's getting more and more simplistic as time goes on, and the more simplified it gets, the more understanding we get. And it's our job to educate the industry on common practices. You know, for the first time ever, I went to an Automate conference, and I walked around thinking, I know everybody. I knew 3 people out of 750.
Yeah.
I felt naked and afraid, just so you know.
Yeah.
So now I realize there's a whole segment of the industry, although it's the same customers and the same company, totally different contacts. So our guys that we have currently as regional managers are going to cover what we call the low-hanging fruit. So they're going to go to existing customers like the John Deere's of the world, the Caterpillars of the world, the Cases of the world, the Harley Davidsons. They're going to put our product into places that already know who we are. In the electronics and automation market, nobody knows who we are because we're new at it. You know, we're the new kids on the block for the first time in a lot of years. I mean, SMW Autoblok started in 1942. So, you know, I still remember the first time our owners considered, one of our directors came up with this idea. And we were at a trade show not long ago. One of our owners said to me, Larry, I used to know everything about everything we make. He goes, I have no clue what we do anymore. I said, yeah, but you kept buying companies. What did you think was going to happen? And he laughed. And he said, yeah, but it's a little overwhelming sometimes. He goes, and he's getting older now. So, you know, and then I watch his children who are in their 40s and 50s. It's nothing to them. They just walk in, take care of it, and go on. It's interesting because watching the development of automation and robotics is so different than the development of workholding. You know, workholding, it's generally, for lack of a better term, it's generally a round piece. Now, we make products that hold abnormal shape pieces and all sorts of other things. So taking that out of the equation, you know, most people think of, I got to hold the round piece. Well, what happens if you don't have to hold the round piece? Or what happens if you have to do multiple operations on that part? You have to be flexible enough to transfer that part from one operation to another. And if you can do it inside the same workholding where I turn, mill, and inspect on the same workholding, my problems are over unless you have to release that part to get that part in its natural state, and it has to normalize overnight. And a lot of people do that. But we're even using it that way too. The most impressive comment I've got so far is I got a customer through our facility who wanted to see what we did. And he said, this is interesting. And I go, what's interesting? And I was like, oh God, what do we do? And he said, it's the first manufacturing facility I've been in where somebody makes a product where you utilize your product across the whole spectrum. And I smiled. I was like, well, that took some time, but it does. I mean, you know, you still walk through our shop. There's still a curved vise. We make vices, but our owners get upset. Why do you have a curved vise? Well, the curved vise is the standard in a 6-inch milling vise. You know, why do you guys have other people's lifting magnets? Because we've had them for 20 years. Why would we replace them? Well, replace them. We just threw out lifting magnets and replace them. But those are the things you have to be aware of. Sometimes you can reutilize old components in new setups, and they're just as effective. Don't think you have to go in with brand new everything. You can adapt automation to old machines, new machines, manual machines. I mean, there's nothing you can't do.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Larry. Now, another buzzword I know in the manufacturing industry has been, 3D printing or additive manufacturing. So how has the use of, 3D printing really changed the approach when it does come to workholding solutions?
Jake, you know what? It's really funny you said that, because if you'd asked me the same question 2 years ago, it doesn't affect us at all.
Yeah.
But it does, because if you realize 3D printing is like taking a rough cast or forge part. If you're doing top 10, you now have to know where the location of that part is. If your part's out around by 30,000, guess what? Your finished product is going to be probably out by 30,000.
Yeah.
But you have to have the ability now to compensate, centralize a component, not based on the OD of the part, but on the centralizing on the spindle. So now you know you're getting an accurate part. 3D printing has also brought a whole new realm to design and manufacturing of our product. We're now looking at putting in our facility a 3D printer to do metallic printing, to do locator posts, locator bases, complicated cooling assemblies, jaws. So it's going to get us to a point where we don't machine everything anymore. We may program a 3D printer, run 50 sets of jaws in 4 days, and that frees up our machine shop. So it's affected work holding in the way, though, that you have to be very cautious how you proceed, because in our industry, if a car comes to a machine that's out by 30,000, so we can compensate usually up to 40 or 60. But 3D printing can be out by a quarter of an inch.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful. Now, 3D printing is getting more and more accurate also. 3D printing, we have an aerospace customer out west that is actually talking about 3D printing rocket components. Some of these rocket components are, up to 20 feet in diameter. But for me, that blew my eye. I was like, what? 20, but we have a division. We have a division that can build products that large. It's just how you think about it and how you process a component. There's the other thing. Think about your process. An automated process should be should be a duplication of your manual process, improved by taking intervention out of it. A robot never calls in sick. A robot never gets tired. A robot never takes a break. But a robot also can't move a robot across the shop. A robot also can't reprogram or reutilize a robot can't reconfigure a shop floor. I'm sure they will at some point. I sat through a presentation at there's an organization called A3 that just had their yearly conference. Mm-hmm. And I saw a young man stand up who owns a company with 4 other young men, and I had to assume their mothers don't know they're not going to high school, that builds what they call humanoids. And I raised my hand at the end and I said, wasn't there a bad movie written about this? Yeah. And he just laughed. He goes, people talk about this all the time because robots are getting intuitive. So if you teach a robot to do something, they can now have the ability to improve that process by thinking. If they start programming themselves, I might move to the moon. But it's amazing to see how much technology is increasing. They say every 7 years. Well, I just read an article that said with the onslaught of computerization, automation, and robotics, you could reduce that time to between 3.5 and 4 years, which is frightening. Because think about that. They'll do just cycles, economic cycles. Jake, look at your industry specifically. They've been automating for years. There's been automatic paper feeders for magazine printing. But look at what percentage of your business now has gone from print to digital.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, that's the same difference for us. I mean, we're used to going in, putting the product on the machine, going, yes, it works, and we leave. Now, you have to manage that throughout the process. And actually, it's more important to have better customer service and technical support for those things, because you're usually selling something to someone that's already a naysayer, and they're looking for every reason to get it the hell out of their shop.
Yeah.
I read an article not all that long ago, and everybody knows who comes from Michigan or around Michigan, and you guys know, being in Ohio, Jake, the automotive industry took a hell of a hit about 15 years ago, and they lost just shy of 1 million people between Michigan lost 698,000 people. I think Ohio lost another 500,000. So you're talking about 1.2 million between 2 Midwestern states. They're saying that Detroit specifically is going to need 700,000 new employees in the next 10 years. They're going to have a college degree. They're going to have to be able to change automation on the fly, refabricate a workshop floor in the shortest period of time. They're not going to make $400,000 a year working hourly. They're going to start at $80,000 and climb the ladder like everyone else does. It was a very interesting perception because, Detroit was all but dead. Well, I was just there I think MC Forecast this last year was in Detroit. I lived in Wixom, Michigan for 7 years. I have to be honest, I was shocked at how much new building is going on in the city, how much the suburbs you're starting to see new office buildings, new construction on neighborhoods. When I left Michigan, I did all I could to sell my house without having to burn it down,
And the Lions are winning too. Who would have thought that?
Yeah, no shit. I mean, the fact that the Lions might go to the Super Bowl, I'm a big fan, and I think that they deserve it more than anybody else. I mean, right now, especially, I guess the Browns could use it too, but maybe next year.
So, Larry, this is something that you have touched on too, but as a potential customer, what kind of would be their playbook in order to get in touch with you? What kind of services, as far as, is there any kind of demonstrations that they could see, or any kind of way to see your products in action before they go ahead and install them in their factory?
We're in the process, Jake, of going through a total refurb of our own facility. We are going to put in a demonstration and product showroom. We are going to try and display as much automation and robotics as we can in our own facility. Plus, we're going to do training for customers and salespeople and distributor people.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to bring them into our facility, have the ability to show them the newest technology in operation in a classroom style setting, but with practical setups right there so they can watch it move. I think that when you choose your partner, make sure your partner has the ability to give you an education, because it's not just buying a product and figuring it out. It's having a partner that comes in and helps you and holds your hand through the process. Because again, it's kind of frightening when you start seeing a shop that all of a sudden goes from nothing but people to all of a sudden robots start showing up. The first thing that goes around the shop is, oh, we're all losing our jobs. You have to assure people that, no, their skills are going to be improved and they're going to become a more valuable employee. And chances are you're going to have making more money than you made before, because now you offer the company something they need, someone that has the ability to program and reconfigure automation on the fly. Because if you make 500,000 of these, bad example, because it's a plastic cup, but that's great. I mean, automation is simple, but if I make 5 of those, and then I make 50 of something else, and then 70 of something else, and then 2 of something else, and I go back to 50 of these, you know, the robot doesn't care. You just have the ability to, you have to have the ability to process them in a way that it's the most convenient, but the most productive all at the same time. Mm-hmm. You have to take into account the availability of product. You have to take into account the availability of material. You have to take into account how much time is it going to take to program this for the setup. And you're not only just programming a machine anymore. Now you're programming the machine to interface with a bar loader. That bar interfaces with a steady rest, that interfaces with a chuck, that now interfaces with automation. There's a lot of thinking going on in the background.
Yeah.
I say that every robotics company should get Quick Draw McGraw's little sidekick, and what's his name, McGillicuddy or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I want to just put up, I'll do this in and around here, But it's, unless you're 60 years old, you don't even know who Quick Draw McGraw was. Yeah. Stuff. But it's the funny part is people have to realize this is technology that's not going away. It's only going to get bigger and bigger. Automation is going to become a part of all our lives. Think of when you went to the grocery store as a kid. Your mother put the stuff on a belt, and the girl pushed a button. That was automation, man. A forklift is automation. Anything that moves apart without human intervention is automation. And people don't realize that. It's not just autonomous vehicles or autonomous carts or a robot loading a machine or offloading a machine. It's everything in between. We're automating software. We're automating hardware. We're automating processes. Automation is a frame of mind, and you have to open your mind up. But again, please get the buy-in from the entire organization, because one naysayer can screw it up for the whole time.
Awesome, Larry. So that just about wraps up today. But obviously, you've touched on a huge amount of things that could be coming in the future. So obviously, it's tough to say. But besides, automation, robotics, additive manufacturing, you mentioned how your electric offering is, up and running. Is there anything else that you could see coming to the world of the work holding industry, let's say in 5 years, if we have this conversation again?
My retirement.
Right. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But yeah, Jake, I think you're going to see a consistent improvement in process of work holding. You're going to have to adapt to be more automatically loaded and unloaded. That's the nice thing about electric work holding is now the robot's talking to the work holding. So instead of stroking a truck all the way out or limiting my stroke mechanically, I can now just tell the truck I need to open 30,000 more than 2.7 inches. It opens. I now have the ability to electronically sense the part of the position. When you machine a part on an air sensing setup now, or an oil sensor, or a water sensing, first operation is usually a depression of a pin. Now you can sense by adjusting the variability of the base unit. I can adjust and have part presence sensing and part placement sensing on a first operation. That's never been able to be done before. So we're very excited about that. And I think that's where you're going to see the vast improvements of work holding. It's going to have to be adaptable to now, because we generally didn't supply locators on a workshop. If we did, it was a spring-loaded thing. We had 3 fixed heights. It usually was a nightmare. You had to trim everything down. Generally, if you're using a locator, it's cut on the machine. Well, if you're using an electronic locator, you're just adjusting a dip switch to say I want to be 0.2 microns or 0.02 microns or 1 micron variability. So if I now have a casting and it's got an exaggerated rough surface, it's not just picking up high points, it's picking up all the points in between so it knows where it is. So I think that the biggest improvements, Jake, are going to be, that I hate to do it for you, flexibility, the ability to adapt to new operations and situations, the ability to interface with a robot. And again, we've patented that type of work. Now, that's not to say somebody's not going to change part of the operation. It will be patented some other way. But the non-transfer of power and data to Workholding is patent pending and will be patented in the next 5 years, because patent pending takes you 7, patent 20, or 14, so you get 21 years with nobody else. But it's, we're also being very careful when we apply this, because we don't want to release this to a country that may copy it or something like that, because try suing a company in their own country that has that reputation. It's just not possible. So we're trying to apply it in the best possible situations. We're trying to protect, and the data is not ours. We never touch the data, just so you know. The data is always the customer's property. We just accommodate giving them that data. We don't see it unless they show it to us, but we don't care what their format is. We just write the format, show them what their output is. If they like that, it's perfect. Customers are going to have to realize they're going to have to be more flexible too, because now your ability to process different consistency or different variety of parts, you can start thinking outside of your normal box of customers. It's going to give you the ability now to be much more competitive on a worldwide basis. We've all heard people talk about deglobalization and reshoring, and we used to punish other countries. We used to yell at the Germans for protectionism. Well, duh. If we don't protect ourselves, the rest of the world doesn't give a rat's patootie about us. Yeah. So the reality is, we have to assure our own futures. And I think, as we've all heard the economists talk about, with reshoring, we're going to bring a lot of work back to North America. The biggest benefactors are going to be Canada and Mexico from the United States, and also still Europe. But prepare yourself, because your customer base is going to be a much more concentrated area, but a much larger offering of parts. Everything that left the country, talk to American Axle. They're closing plants all over the world and bringing it back. Dane is doing the same thing. It's probably, again, from a guy in manufacturing, I don't ever talk about politics, sports, or religion, but let me tell you something. Be careful who you vote for, because it might come true, people. I mean, you have to realize this economy was not built. McDonald's was not a career when I was a child. It was a high school job. I'm just wondering when the $30 Big Macs comes, because at $15 or $18 an hour, in Chicago, in the city right now, there's a McDonald's that offers $23 an hour plus benefits. For a $2 hamburger, I'm sorry, I don't know how the hell you're doing that, but I know what it costs to manufacture a part. It's got to cost a lot to manufacture food. So those are the things you have to be aware of as prices increase and the cost of labor goes up. We have to figure out how to be more productive on a more efficient and effective level than we've ever been before.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Larry. And thank you once again to our sponsor today, SMW Autoblok, the work-holding company focused on achieving customer goals and expectations with the highest quality products and services. And obviously, once again, a massive thank you to Larry Robbins. Thank you for joining us once again, Larry. Safe travels, and I will talk to you soon, my friend.
Jake, thank you very much. I'll see you soon, brother.
You can listen to all of our episodes of Manufacturing Matters and Lunch and Learn podcast from the MFG Radio Network on Spotify, Apple Music, and on our websites, todaysmedicaldevelopments.com, aerospacemanufacturinganddesign.com, defenseandmunitions.com, and evdesignandmanufacturing.com.